Okay, so continuing with who invented the phone, again on slide 10, you see on the left Alexander Graham Bell, and you see on the right Elisha Gray. And the two of them are neck and neck, basically. They're about 11 years in age different. Um, so, U.S. Patent 174-465 is said to be the most valuable patent ever. It belonged to Alexander Graham Bell. It was awarded in 1876, and over 600 lawsuits were filed in the 1800s over it. Everybody trying to contend that his, I would like to say his or her, but they were mostly men, uh, was the real telephone. And so everybody was arguing about it, but to this day, and you can see why, it is the most valuable patent ever. Bell tried to sell the patent rights to Western Union in 1876 for $100,000. Now, in those days, I wonder if you were running Western Union, would you have thought that that patent was worth $100,000? Of course, that was, whoa, a lot of money back in 1876. So Western Union passed on that. They said that the patent was worthless, and who'd want voice when the telegraph still works? Interesting. What we find in communication is that we want everything. We want voice, we want face, we want the ability to send documents to each other. We want everything, and before you know it, we're going to want smell. We're going to want things that make us even closer. We're going to want a telephone to give us what face to face in the same room gives us. And who knows, we've seen so much happen that nobody ever expected to happen that I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with some way of sharing each other um, in substance as well as just voice or vision. So, wonderful, wonderful patent to hold, and he couldn't sell the thing. Western Union. Western Union made a big mistake there. And I do want to point out Western Union was a company that sent telegrams. And I do remember getting telegrams when I was dating certain people, and they couldn't meet with me when they said they were going to meet with me, and I'd get a telegram. But usually, well, not usually, but quite a bit of the time, telegrams had a very bad reason for being sent. If you got a telegram, or if you got a telegram and then somebody appeared on your doorstep from the one of the services, the Army, the Navy, whatever, it usually meant that your son or daughter died in service, and it was not a very nice thing to receive. But that is how we alerted people if we couldn't find them, the parents. So more about Alexander Graham Bell. His wife was deaf, and he wanted to, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. He had a problem and he wanted to solve it, and he had the brain power to do it. He wanted to communicate with her at a distance. Um, in most households today, we just yell at each other, right? Or maybe if you have it in your house, there's a little a way of communicating with each other through like a device on the wall. You yell into it and it goes to somebody else in another room. I remember my aunt and uncle had an intercom. It was an intercom. Had that back in the 1960s. So we're talking 50 to 60 years ago. They had an intercom in their house, and they could call you from whatever room to whatever room. It was a nice thing, nice thing. So in 1874, we have something called a phonoautograph made out of a dead man's ear. I'm glad it wasn't made out of a live man's ear. That would be very difficult. And I'm sorry about the telephone in the background and somebody leaving a message. They never leave a message. All of a sudden, I'm taping a lecture and they're leaving a message. Okay, you can stop that now. Okay, thank you. So, 1874, the ear's membrane vibrated differently based on the intensity of the sound. It was used to switch a lever on and off and write, as in WRITE. Um, Bell thought that by using a membrane to convert sounds of varying intensity into electrical current of varying intensity, and then reversing the process on the other end with another membrane, he could replicate speech over long distances. Where he got that idea, I have no idea. I don't think like an inventor, I guess. So his first phone used a metal disc attached to a rod floating in acid to create a variable resistance. A change in intensity made the disc vibrate differently. In 1877, this was a year after he got the patent on his telephone, he invented the carbon microphone. Was used in phones until the late 1970s. So tell me that his invention or his patent was not worth anything. He developed something that was in use for 100 years. Quite amazing. I'm not talking about the actual telephone, I'm talking about the carbon microphone. A phone produced from around 1900 on will still work on today's phone network. So, this was a bright man. He didn't just do things accidentally, he really was creative. So, this is on slide 14. We have Bell's first phone. Doesn't look like anything you've ever seen in real life, I'm sure. But he would speak into that cone or almost cone near his mouth, and it would do some things and then come out as sound on the other end. So when the patents were filed, Bell's phone didn't work. How do you like that? Imagine today you develop something and you don't always bring your device to the patent office. That would be really difficult to have everybody bring their devices to the patent office when they thought of something. It didn't work. But, and Elisha Gray, had a better design. However, it was first come, first served at the patent office. Well, on March 10th, 1876, Alexander Bell said this over his telephone: "Mr. Watson, come here. I want you." That was the first telephone message. Remember that. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want you." This was from another room. A one-wire copper system was used at first. A two-wire system was invented just 5 years later in 1881. It provided for much clearer conversation, and it was insulated by cotton and rubber and then twisted. So let's end this here and move on.